Welcome to this Crisisworks beginners video. This session will go for about 35 minutes. If you are a coordinator, please watch this video first before proceeding to the next one. I'm Peter Kakris and I'm from DataLink, and we're the creators of Crisisworks. We created it over 8 years ago and we've been programming in the cloud for over 18 years, well before the cloud became trendy. I conduct a lot of Crisisworks training, and I've also been in the control room for many real and simulated emergencies, and also in the field with our customers for a number of field inspections. Crisisworks is designed for first-time users and first-time and long-time users, and as such, it's designed to be easy to use and intuitive for people that aren't really computer savvy. Before we get started, let's have a high-level overview of what Crisisworks is. Crisisworks is used for emergency and incident management. For emergency management, we take care of all phases of the emergency. However, when it comes to incidents, it's really just response. So we take care of all of it. This diagram illustrates how Crisisworks is used in all the 4 phases. So as we can see here, a lot of recovery happens at the point of impact. So whilst you're in a response phase, you're working in the recovery. And that's where we have events that cover both areas. But we also have some events, and we call them events where it's really effectively a project or a context. And we have some events here that are just in the response phase only. And we have some events which are used for sort of risk mitigation, etc. And such as fire prevention, weed management, which you can see in the top there. Another area obviously is part of the preparation, where we store our procedures and policies, our contacts, and all the rest of those. This kind of information is stored in what we call global events, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. Information such as your contacts and your templates and your reference information such as procedures and policies, they need to be available in all of your events, or perhaps not all events, but perhaps the ones that are relevant to what you're working on. So what we do is we have a global event which is restricted based on position. This means for business continuity, you could have your data just for the few positions you have for business continuity, as opposed to emergency management, which might be separate for inspections. So they can all be separated out. So this diagram here shows how a single event has its own data, which is just for that event only, and that includes contacts and requests and everything else. But we also have contacts that come from the global event, so they're all intermixed together. And down the bottom, we're in the green area, where this is really describing sort of system data, which is available to everything, and that's resources and positions and some of the security settings, etc. Part of Crisisworks flexibility is the way we have multiple positions. So any event can have multiple positions, and any user can have multiple positions. And if a user has any one of those positions that the event has, then they have access to it. This particular example here shows that Joanne can't see the hazmat incident because her position of general manager isn't included for the event. The bottom half of this image shows that if you don't have a matching position, then you won't see the information in the global workspace as well. Additionally, when you go on and off duty in the different positions, it will affect your level of access. So it's important to make sure that your position, which should match your real world position that you use for emergency or incident management, you go on duty when you actually are on duty, and you go off duty when you're not on duty anymore. Being on and off duty in Crisisworks will affect your notifications. In this session, we're going to cover using your web browser. Another video will talk about the mobile app. If you have a modern web browser which is less than a few years old, then it should work okay. And our supported web browsers are Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer. However, if you are using another one, they should work. It's possible that some features may not work as well as others, but the vast majority should be totally fine. If you do have the modern web browsers, please make sure that your patches are up to date. We've had examples where some people have had a modern web browser, say IE 11, but it hasn't been updated for 2.5 years, and there are some issues with those. When it comes to the mobile app is better suited for field capture. However, it can be used indoors to capture photos, video, and audio, and we'll be talking about that in another session. In your web browser, you don't need to type in any of the W's or any HTTPS. Just type in your site name, then add the .crisisworks.com, and from there enter in your username and password. This screen here shows that the same details are added into your mobile app. And please don't Google it. You need to type in the full address in the top of your web browser.
Okay, we're going to log in here as a demo user. This user is Waylon Smithers from The Simpsons. So we put in our name and details and log in. And as you can see up the top, I just put in Peter Test as my site without the HTTPSs and everything else. Okay, I agree to the licensing information. And what it does is it brings me into the dashboard. Sometimes you might, if you log in, you sometimes might show all events up the top here, or participate in events. But if you've logged in before, it should take you back into the previous event you were working on. So some of the key elements to look at here is we have the menu bar along the top here, and this shows us how we can quickly navigate to the different sections in the system. On the left hand side we have our counters. So these counters show us the number of open items for the current event. So this is the larger emergency example. We can also give that a click to take us there, so it's also navigational, not just a counter. And here we have a dashboard feed which shows us all the activity where all the new changes will automatically appear at the top. And on the top right hand corner we have what we call announcements or prioritized items that will sit on the top. And here we have a map which will show what's showing. What I just did there is I clicked on this icon here to zoom to the full extent. So if I've got items over the side there and it's not showing, I can give it a single click and that'll automatically pan the map and zoom so you can see it all at once.
The next thing we will look at is map layers, which is the bottom map icon here.
What I'll do here is I'll turn on an additional layer. So in here we can have extra layers. And this is an example here where we can have map overlays. And they can be what we call static layers or live layers from other systems. In the dashboard here we can see some of the changes. So if I click on show details here, I can see that this particular request was created by Waylon Smithers. And here I've added the avatar for Waylon, so the icon is now a bit more interesting. From here I can click on the hyperlinks. So if I click on just my name here, that'll take me to my user details. If I click on the request, it'll actually take me to that particular request and I can see what's going on there. And then in this example here, I don't have access to edit it, and that's why the edit button is missing. Other ones we have a look at, we'll notice the edit button will actually be there. The other thing we do with the map is we can also look at items to move to them. So if I click on this particular icon here, this shows me the ID, and I can go to it and have a look and return. If the map is a bit small, I can also click this icon here to zoom to full screen, and press the same here to come back to it. Okay, another key item we have here is we have our own user menu. So in here we can actually come down to our user profile, and from here we click edit. So we can edit our own profile, we can update our avatar if we like, but the key thing to look at is our alert modes. So by default this is how we want to be notified. These can be overwritten by coordinators if they're important messages that need to go out. So here these first two are the most important, the receive alert via SMS and receive alerts via email. So if you have a request assigned to you, then that means you're on duty, then you'll get those notifications. On call is also important to help you get broadcast messages for perhaps new events where you're not on duty for the new event but you are on call. We recommend that all key emergency management staff should be on call all year round except for when they're on holidays. Anytime we want to go to the dashboard, we can either click on the bell, the shortcut or the short name, or the overview, or we can go to dashboard. So there's a few different ways to go there. I just normally give it a single click. All of these menus, they have these right hand arrow drop downs, so that just means there's some sort of a menu there. And what you notice that here with the new button, if I press this new request, it's going to create a brand new one from the dashboard. Or if I want to choose another item, I can click down here and go to create a new offer, for example. If you're looking for an event that you're not currently involved with, you can always go down to here and select join another event, and that'll take you back to this duty screen where you can get to from a couple of different places where you can choose to go on duty in one or more positions in the event or events at the same time. So in this example, I have this position in this event and a different position in another event. So I might just add on communications officer, and that'll update my current positions. And here we can see that Waylon has gone on duty as the communications officer in the event larger emergency example, and that's an important part of the auditing process. At the dashboard, we can see other things that have just updated. What I did is I just took a photo using the Crisisworks app, and it's automatically appeared on the dashboard. We can also see other things such as overdue and current, etc. Okay, so let's create our first request from the dashboard. Let's create new. And in here we can specify who our requester is. So if I'm the requester, I can just leave it as it is. If the requester is someone else, I can click on that. The form will automatically expand, and I can search for them if they exist already, or if they're brand new, I can type them in. So I'm going to search for Max. Now Max isn't, I know there's Max in there, but he's Maxwell. So I'm going to search for Max Star, and he'll search in the contacts. So let's bring in Maxwell Smart. Has Max authorized to pay for this? I'm not too sure. So I'll ask him that question when I'm speaking with him. Okay, and these are examples of what can be configured for different organizations. This is an important thing for councils. Okay, so in here we're going to put down here, so this is Maxwell Smart. What's he requesting? He's requesting a new shoe. Put in some points here. Size, I don't know, 9, with built-in phone. So what we can see here is I'm using some bullet points. We have other things in here where we can put numbers, links, bolds, italic. We can even insert a table. So if we wanted to. If we want to expand to full screen, we can. So we can type as much as we like. And we can add attachments. And when I save it, it'll go in. So by default, anyone can create a request into the system, but only a coordinator can assign it as we're following the AIMS process for requests. If we want to give it a tag, we can. So let's put down equipment. In fact, as I type equipment here, it'll automatically select it from here, and I put down communications, comms. So these tags have been used before, and if you haven't used tags before, they're fantastic. It's effectively like using folders, but one item can be in many folders all at the same time. We can give it a priority. I might go for a high priority. It's due by, I'll click on now, and we'll add a bit of time, so let's make it 3 o'clock. And I'll press on the zeros to make it 3 o'clock even. Okay, so let's save that. We can add locations. And I might as well do that now. Let's put in a location here of 33. No. Partridge Crescent. And I can even annotate the map. So this first one here allows me to put a point on the map. These other ones allow me to do lines and polygons. They're more advanced options. We'll probably skip over them for now. So let's save our request. And because I created that request from the dashboard, we should see that request automatically come in here. So now we can see the request counter updated, and that new item that we created is there, and we can see that it's active and of high importance. Okay, to navigate to requests, I've got two options. I can go to the operations menu and click on request if I want to see the full list of them. But even better, if I click on this number 24, it shows me the 24 open items. So a single click of that brings me to the requests data grid. And when we see the data grid here, we have all the different counters. So on the left hand side we have the counters. We can see there are 14 unassigned. 2 are for my positions, the communications officer and the general manager PA, which we can see from here. They're the positions that I currently have in this event. If I actually switch over to another event, I'll go for this one here. We'll see in this event here, I'm only the communications officer, and that's why it's highlighting that particular counter. So what I'll do is I'll come back to the larger event. If I do go for the option of all participating events, what it'll do is it'll aggregate everything together. That's why we can see on the dashboard here there are 28 requests because there must be 4 that are open in the other event. So let me go back to the larger emergency example. Okay, so I can either go to that new shoe here to go to it, or I'll just go to as I did before. Back on this data grid, if we want to see these items on the map, I can click on this map icon up here, and that'll show us the items that are currently in the current filter on the map. If I change my counter to be this one here, the communications officer, then I'll only see the items that are on the map, and neither of those have a location. So the map is a visual representation of what you're currently viewing. And if I can click on an item, I can actually go to it from here. So it's very handy to be able to visually interrogate the map to be able to see what record is in which particular place on the map. Okay, so from here, we've got a couple of options here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this little thing called the sidebar. By clicking on this icon here, I can see the sidebar, and that's the same as my dashboard feed. However, it's conveniently located here. So instead of having to jump back to the dashboard, I can get it from here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now create or look at my own counters. So I've got some items assigned to me. So what I'm going to do is open up my communications officer counter. I might hide the map because it's probably not relevant right now. And I'll edit this record. Need the TV needed in the comms room. I'm going to edit this one and say spoke to contractor. And I'm going to make that in progress and make that say 30%. And if I put this down as equipment and give it a priority as low and save. What happens here is the counters update automatically on the left hand side, but the main data grid won't. If we do want that to update straight away, we can do one of two things. We can either click on another counter and back again, or we can click on this little reload icon. So that particular item would have moved to the in progress area. So that's where we can see here it updated a few seconds ago. If something's not updating for you, you can always press this little icon here and that'll force it to reload
both the counters and the data grid at the same time.
What we can see here is I can also look in here and see what the changes were and click on the link to go to the request. The tags that I added before, I can see them down here as I've now got 3 with equipment as a tag. Each of these can also be sorted. If I want to click by priority, then it'll sort by priority or by the progress, etc. Okay, so let's talk about creating log entries. So we've talked about requests. We also have the concept of a log, and a log is kind of like a more of a personal comment or thought that you want to record. Because we don't want to hang on to pieces of paper. Everything needs to be stored electronically to help us for future investigations or reports. So I'm going to put down an example of how to use a log. So it's really quick and easy. Just type, press return, and in she goes. If I want to do a more advanced log, I can actually use the new button here and go to new log. And here I have all of my items in the widgets. So I can also add attachments, but I can also add make it a decision. So there's a different type here where I can go to a decision, and you can put down what you did here and the reason for it here. Okay, went to the office. Okay. The log that we just did before was something that's independent and really not connected to anything else. If we actually had a log entry that needed to be added against this particular request, it makes sense to actually do it against the request so we can add up to the full record history. So in here there isn't much, but let's just say we've got here spoke to company, asked if we want grey or blue shoes. So if I save that in the record notes, what it's going to do, it's going to be added to like a log entry but connected to this particular record. If there are extra details in here to do with specifications, I might have in here with built-in phone and antenna. So when I save that record, we'll actually see the comment will be added against the new shoe. And when we have a look at it in the history, we'll be able to see that here we've got the comment in here, and we can see what was also changed as well. So if this item is now completed, beforehand we looked at in progress, we can actually go to resolved, and that will actually complete it for us. Okay, and our counters will update accordingly to show that we now have less items. Okay, the other thing to look at as well is, let's just say something's been assigned to us, but it's not really for us. We could actually go to this particular item, deliver equipment. We might say, well, that's really not for me. I could actually go into this item here and say, change it down to requested. That means it's going to bump it back to the coordination team, because I'm not a coordinator, I don't have the ability to assign it to someone else. So my count has now gone down to 1, and we'll see this item has now actually disappeared. From my list, it's now unassigned. Okay, we've spoken about requests, which are tasks that are assigned to a position. And the reason why we do positions is because when we're working with emergencies, people can come on and off duty, and we need to make sure that something doesn't slip through the cracks. We have other areas in the system where we actually assign to people, but that's for items that it doesn't really matter. It's not as critical that they get done straight away or in a short period of time. If someone's away for a day or two, then that's okay. So that's why when we're doing requests, they are assigned to positions. The other area is information. So if we create a new information record, and information is it's not assignable to anyone, it's just data that's into the system, and information really should be used more so than logs. So information is really something that you really want to share with everyone, and a log is more, you can think of it more as a personal log as opposed to a shared piece of information for everyone else. So in here we can put in the subject of the information. It might be a weather forecast, and in here we have the source. Now I could be the source of the weather, or I might have got it from the Bureau of Meteorology. So let me do a search for is there a BOM in here? No. Or Bureau? No, there isn't. Okay, so I'll add in the BOM in here. And in Melbourne we do have these jumps in temperatures, so we're used to those sorts of things. So that's information, and we can also have when it's valid from and when it expires. And we also have the same concept here as tags, with tags, and these will have its own workflow, so we have current, non-current, etc. Because I created the information from this request screen, I haven't really seen it update. If I actually want to go to it, I can go to it from here, or I can actually expand this area and go to information and look at all the active information. We have different things as well. We have routes, which can be done from the app. We've got situation reports and information. So let's say create a new information record. We can go for another type here and say I want to put in an incident action plan. And here we have a different form. So I'll just put down Friday 3 p.m. IAP. So it tracks the different types of records that we have there. As we create requests and information in the system, that'll automatically create contacts. So if we come down and have a look at the contacts area, these are the contacts that have been created as part of our work in the current event. And here it lists the event here for the larger emergency example. So here we've got Emily, and if I want to make Emily available in other events, I can do so, and this depends on what your level of access is. So in here, if I have access, I can actually move Emily into a global workspace. That means it'll be available to all positions, or for the council workspace, it'll only be available to people that have a council position. And in here I can add comments and add other details for Emily as a contact record. The great thing about the contact records being proper records like this is they'll also come down to your app, and if there's a phone number in there, you can single press to dial them on your app. If we want to create offers in the system, offers are used primarily by councils during larger emergencies, where people from the community will offer assistance, either labour or services, etc. They might offer accommodation. So let's just say I've got someone here offering accommodation. I might put in Smith, Peter Smith is offering accommodation. accommodation, and is pet friendly accommodation, and large house available. So we can save that record and give it a priority as high, and we can say it's only valid until the end of the year. So far we've looked at creating contacts, requests, information and offers, and logs. So that's everything in the operations tab. Recovery, we won't speak in detail about it, but in high level, the recovery cases are used for damage to private property. So that'll be either people's houses, businesses, or themselves, so if they need a service. And also we also have within cases, we also have in the recovery space, we have environmental health assessments, which are to do with properties and the safety of that property, which is quite a detailed item. We also have an infrastructure assessment here where we can actually do damage to assets. So in here you might have things such as damage to footpaths and properties and roads, etc. And that'll be covered in another video. The last thing to look at in this Crisisworks overview is the library. The library is a place where we store our reference items or our procedures and policies. So from the dashboard, we can either go to the library menu or we can click on library from here. When we go to the library, what it does is it's just like the contacts in that it aggregates or intermixes all the records from the current event. So the larger emergency example has 2 library records, but it mixes it with all the other records that are in these global workspaces. So if I come in here and have a look, it looks like there's a long list of 49 active records, and we have different tags here. So I can click on MEMP and it shows me these items that have MEMP. I can click on Fire Warden. So it gives us an idea here how we can organize our records to work with the way that we want to work. So I'm going to look at a particular sample here just to show the types of data that can be entered. So clicking on a record brings it into view mode, and then from view mode we can edit. So here we can see we've got a table, we can have images, and we also see a history of changes that have been made. So let's edit this record. So here I can put in notes to say uploaded a new doc and removed previous version. So I'll get rid of that one there, and I'll click attach file and I grab a file here. So when I save that, what we'll notice is in the history we'll actually see that the previous document will still be here, even though we've now removed this other one and replaced it. And here, if we want to, we can actually save it into another particular workspace. Okay, so let's save that record. So when we go back and have a look at that one, we'll look at its history here, and we can see that the Raising Ducks document was uploaded, and this one here was a previous version that was in there. And of course, when we're working with our content, we can go to full screen mode. We can work with bullets, etc., points, and the tables will automatically increase as we go. And here is where we have also the other different document types, where we can go for a geospatial feature or a meeting. We'll look at that in just a moment. So let's create a new library document, and there we can go for a meeting. And in here with the meeting we have the different, what we call the schema, where it's a different form, where we have the agenda, meeting notes, review of previous items, etc. And we also have here a geospatial feature, where in here we can put down some particular location, link to a particular asset or a point of interest, etc. And we can put some notes in and attachments as well. So just to summarize, Crisisworks is used for all phases of emergency management and is also used for incident management. If you're looking for an event that you can't see in the top right hand corner, select join an event and it will give you the list to choose from. Also note that users can be on duty in multiple positions in multiple events at the same time. And when working with contacts and library records, they're intermixed with all the other records from the current event, and that's working together with the global events. And users need to edit their own preferences for their notifications in particular. This will affect whether they get notifications for the current event that they're on duty for, and also they can be on call so that they can get announcements for brand new events. So that's why it's important for key emergency management staff to have this on-call setting enabled. The dashboard is like your home screen. It's where you go to when you want to get a situational awareness of what's going on. The counters give you that counter for the open items. Clicking on any one of them takes you to that particular area. All the changes that are happening in real time will appear on the dashboard for you. Announcements appear in the top right hand corner, and the maps can be zoomed to full screen, and you can also change the layers to see what you want to see. And there's an icon there to click on to show everything on the map at once, and also pan and move the map around to show everything in one go. Requests is effectively task management, but for positions. And with the requests, each particular record can have a location, it can have a status with a number of items you can choose, such as in progress and resolved. And if you want to bounce it back to the coordination team, you can mark it as requested, and you can add due dates and times and priority. And there's a yellow section which is for your notes that can go into the record, which is different to the details, which is part of the core record itself. And like all other record types, it also has tags. A key thing to be aware of is that requests can only be assigned by coordinators, and also requests are assigned to positions. So when it comes to emergency management, as people go on and off duty, they effectively inherit an inbox from other people, and when they go off duty, other people inherit their inbox, just to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. Information records are very similar to requests. However, the key difference is that they're not assigned. It's just information or intelligence that sits in the system until it's no longer required. They can have an additional map icon, so if you want to use it as a geospatial identifier on the map, you can choose one of many map icons, and the data is shared with most users based on position. And there are a few different types of information, such as situation report, incident action plan, and feature of interest. The data grid, or lists, are found throughout the system when we're looking at groups of records, and most of them have the option to view it on a map. So whatever the found set or filtered set of records are, when you show the map, it only shows those particular items. Also, down on the bottom left hand corner, there's a little reload icon, so that if you want to get it to reload straight away, you press that particular icon. And each list can be sorted by clicking on the column headings, and there's also a little search facility by clicking on the magnifying glass. Logs are stored in the system, which are really more personal thoughts, notes, or comments, and we only use these logs when they're not particularly linked to a request or an information or a case or another record like that, because in those other records we can actually put our yellow notes against a particular record. You can also do them quickly from the sidebar, and you can also use the new button if you want to choose a decision or to be able to access the widgets to be able to put a lot of extra information. Contacts are stored against each particular event. So by default, as soon as you create a new request or information record, it'll automatically create the contact in that event, unless you move one to a global event or already have contacts in global events or workspaces. When you're using the mobile app, the contacts are easily accessible, single click to dial and also to email from the mobile app, as well as the ability to save those contacts for offline access, which is particularly helpful for business continuity. Library records are very similar to contact records in that the data is aggregated between the local event and the global events and workspaces. The library is the place where you store all of your procedures and policies, your job descriptions, specifications and other reference information, and even store meetings and agendas, etc. We also briefly touched on cases and offers, which are more for councils, but the cases can be used for other organisations where you need to track the recovery for affected people or property in terms of the services that need to be followed up over a long period of time. We'll have another session just on the recovery section, as well as other sessions on mobile apps and sessions for coordinators and Crisisworks administrators, and also sessions for Crisisworks implementation tips and best practices. Whilst we've designed Crisisworks to be easy to use, if you have any questions about how to use it or any problems, please contact support@crisisworks.com. You can also consult the help menu in the top right hand corner of Crisisworks to be able to get some online help. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye for now.